which Week 17 NFL spreads are must bets. Welcome, football fans, gridiron gamblers, and all of my degenerates. It's Mitch here with my 5 favorite spread picks for Week 17. We only have a couple weeks remaining in the regular season, which means we need to take full advantage. Holidays or no holidays, it's still time on Money Mitch to make some money. So here are the 5 picks versus the spread that I love the most. If that sounds good, don't forget to Gronk spike the like button. Don't be a jabroni and subscribe to the channel for weekly NFL picks and best bets just like this. Also, if you're looking for all of my bets every week of the NFL season, including the NFL playoffs, it's all on Patreon. For just $5 a month, you can get all of my bets every week and also support my journey as a content creator. Link in the description. Let's start it off with the first pick versus the spread for Week 17. My first pick is going to be on Saturday. And the team I like on Saturday is the Houston Texans, getting 2 points on the road at the Chargers. This is fundamental football. I am taking the Texans to win this game outright, and I love the 2 points in a defensive battle with a low total under 40 because of the fundamentals, the line of scrimmage battle. The Houston Texans have a fearsome foursome, one of the best pass rushes in football, if not the best, and to me, the best defense in football. And that's why I think they win this game. We saw what happened last year when they played in January, last year in the playoffs with a full offensive line for the Chargers. And that was torn apart by Will Anderson, by Danielle Hunter, by the schemes and the blitzes of DeMeco Ryans. And I think once again, Justin Herbert is going to be under duress, pressure, and he's going to take sacks, and he's going to be forced into mistakes. It's as simple as that. I don't care really what happens on the other side of the ball. Although to break that down for you, I do think the Chargers do have a susceptible run defense. I think the Texans can get solid yards on early downs running the football with Woody Marks or Jordan or whoever they choose to run the football with this week. I think CJ Stroud has played confidently, specifically against pressure the last few weeks. And I do believe that Nico Collins, who really dominated that playoff matchup last year, can once again make some explosive, big, game-changing, tide-turning plays that give the Texans the edge in a close defensive game. I think Nico Collins is the type of playmaker that goes above and beyond. And while I like Ladd McConkey, and I don't mind some of these receivers for the Chargers, I don't think they're going to have much room to operate against Derek Stingley, against Bullock, against Lassiter, against that secondary of the Texans. I think the Texans are capable of rushing 4 and getting pressure. They're capable of playing sticky coverage. And I don't think the Chargers quite have the offensive line or the run game to really dictate terms on that facet either, like with that run game either. I respect Greg Roman and his run schemes, and Hampton's been playing well, but I think this comes down to the Texans can get pressure. The Texans are going to be able to run the ball a bit better. I think the Texans are going to be able to make more explosive passing plays. And I also look at the Texans as they're not going on the road to a hostile environment. This Chargers stadium is not much of a home field advantage. When we're looking at some of the injuries, there are injuries on the Chargers offensive line that they're dealing with. But, otherwise, it's a pretty healthy side for both teams. Benjamin St-Juste for the Chargers is also out. One injury that's interesting for the Texans is Trent Brown is out, but Trent Brown's kind of been in and out of the starting lineup for this team, so I'm not too worried about that. For the most part, these teams are pretty healthy at this point in the season, so I think that the Texans are just a really difficult matchup for a Chargers team that we've kind of seen it, right? Like, when they're playing a team with a really vicious, dominant front four, they really struggle to move the ball. And they've had some really terrible offensive outings over these last 2 months, like the Jacksonville game, like the Eagles game. And although they survived some of these, I just don't think they're going to be able to survive this Texans defense, especially coming off a game where the Texans didn't really look great. And the Chargers are kind of riding high. I feel like they're sort of due for a loss. I like Houston here to kind of give you a similar script to what we saw in the playoffs last season. I think they win this game as an underdog against the Chargers and prove they're the bigger AFC contender entering the playoffs. So that's our first pick, is CJ Stroud and the Texans as a dog. I also just like that factor as well. Texans as a dog, Chargers as a favorite. Typically, you want to take both these teams when they're underdogs. That's at least what the trends say when it comes to CJ Stroud and Justin Herbert. Our next pick is going to be my New England Patriots laying a massive number of 13.5. But I do think the Patriots are going to beat the Jets by more than 2 touchdowns in this game. Now, do the Patriots have a lot to play for? Not necessarily, but it's not like they can just sit their players and rest. They do have to beat the Jets if they want to win the division, and that's been the goal of Mike Vrabel and his regime the entirety of the season. Their whole goal from the beginning, watching their hype videos in August, was we're going to win this division. We're going to beat the Bills. We're going to do our thing. And then on top of that, they're still fighting for that number 1 seed. So the Patriots still have that possibility of hosting the playoffs and getting a bye. So there's no reason for the Patriots to really take the foot off the gas pedal. That being said, I would want to check the injury report before you place this bet, and I would want to wait until around Sunday. I don't think the line is really going to shift too much from 13.5 because it's already a massive number, although I think 13.5 is pretty critical compared to 14. So make sure you get a 13.5 rather than a 14. I would say that. But you look at the Jets, and Brady Cook is the starter once again. Their best pass rusher, Will McDonald, is not practicing. Mason Taylor, their best tight end, is not practicing. They really don't have any passing game to speak of. Their rushing offense is their entire offense, and because their passing offense is so inept and so inconsistent, teams can kind of sell out to stop the run, and that basically takes their offense away. They don't seem to score any points until the 3rd or 4th quarter because that's basically when teams stop playing against them. And on the defensive side, they don't have a pass rush to really limit or get to Drake May, to pressure Drake May, even with undermanned offensive line of the Patriots. They don't have a very consistent run defense, and their secondary is very beatable. There's just nothing about the Jets that scares anyone. They don't have the quarterback. They don't have the coach. They don't have the weapons. They don't have a defensive front. There's nothing that allows them to upset anyone of quality. And it's on the road, but New England's actually undefeated on the road this year. They've been a better road team than home team this season, so that actually gives me more confidence. The last time they played, New England won by 13, and that was a fairly easy 13, and that was also with a healthier Jets team and Justin Fields rather than Brady Cook. So a pretty big discrepancy in terms of the talent and in terms of the upside of Justin Fields compared to Cook, right? At least you have that rushing element, which has given New England some issues, while Cook pretty much gives no athleticism and no real drop back prowess either. So I look at this as a game to push the Drake May MVP narrative. I think he could throw 3 to 4 touchdowns. I think New England's going to get up massively in the first 3 quarters. And if Milton Williams does return, which he's been activated off IR, that's going to take away the run game of the Jets. New England's defense has played a little bit more concerning in terms of their football level and their ability lately, but that's mostly been because Robert Spillane and Milton Williams have been injured. Spillane likely will sit out once again, but Milton Williams could be back, which will ensure that they can stop the run and I think reassure that defensive front being a strong suit for the Patriots. So I don't know, man. I just don't see how New England doesn't get to 30. And I really don't know how the Jets score more than 17. So this just feels like it's a game that, it's a big number. Vegas is trying to entice you to lay off of it because of it. But I really don't see how the Patriots don't win by 2 touchdowns. I don't know what the Jets bring here that really tests the Patriots whatsoever. I think they can throw the football to get the lead and run the football to milk the clock and I think they have enough defense. I think there's also enough motivation to lay the points and win some money. So I like New England minus 13.5 as my second pick. My third pick is going to be the Pittsburgh Steelers minus 3. And as a reminder, guys, these picks are in no order. Okay, these picks are in no order. It's not a preference thing. If you do want to see my order and my preference, that's where Patreon comes in handy, where you can actually see, I actually list my bets from my favorite bet, my best bet, to, my other bets. Like I'm putting a little bit of money on it, but not quite as much as I am for my best bet. So the Steelers at minus 3 is also a best bet here on the channel. Now, I think this is a little bit underrating the Steelers. I understand that Cleveland is stronger at home. I understand that this is a divisional contest. And I understand that Cleveland has a good defense and that the Steelers are missing DK Metcalf. But the Steelers are pretty, overall, they're fairly healthy. They are missing DK Metcalf. It could be that TJ Watt comes back. He is limited, so we'll see if he's able to play. But what I was really impressed by with the Steelers defensively was their interior defensive line, the push, and the ability to penetrate the interior run game. And I think Quinshon Judkins going down for the season is a massive loss in a way that I don't think people quite understand for the Browns. Without Judkins, they don't really have a good quality runner, and it takes away their bread and butter from their offense, their power interior running, or their in-between the tackles running ability. Judkins is a good back. I think he's shown that as a rookie. And without him, I don't think that the Steelers will fear the ground game at all. And really, when you look at it, Shedeur Sanders isn't making any throws. This is a fade of Shedeur Sanders. And this is also pro-Pittsburgh in terms of how Aaron Rodgers is playing. When we're looking at the discrepancy between the quarterbacks, Rodgers is playing with control. He's playing with patience. He's playing with accuracy. And I think that's exactly the type of quarterback that you need against this Cleveland team. A guy that's not going to make mistakes, a guy that's going to get rid of the ball quickly, a guy that's going to be able to make a nice tight window throw on occasion, and a guy that's going to audible at the line and be able to kind of counterpunch Jim Schwartz with his play calling. And I think Aaron Rodgers has shown the last couple of weeks just how patient he's willing to be. 4 yards here, 3 yards here, 5 yards there. And I think the way that they're running the football lately against Detroit, against Miami, I think they're going to be able to run the ball a bit against Cleveland. I love the way that they're able to throw the ball quickly and throw screens and have misdirection within Arthur Smith's attack. And I think really Rodgers can target his tight ends in this game, target his backs in this game. That's kind of what you want to do. You want to steer away from Denzel Ward. You don't want to be looking vertically down the field so that the pass rush can get there. You want to slip a screen behind them. And I think the Steelers showed in that first matchup, they kind of gave the blueprint to everyone else in that first game against Cleveland. And they won pretty easily and handily in that game when Cleveland was healthier. I felt like Cleveland actually had a better quarterback at that time. And it wasn't Pittsburgh, but they kind of gave the formula of, okay, just manage the game, don't turn it over, throw a bunch of quick screens, run the ball, manage the game, don't beat yourself, right? We've seen a couple teams this year beat themselves against Cleveland, but overall, we've seen the Niners go there and win and cover. We've seen the Ravens go there and manage the game to a win. We've seen teams, the Bills, manage a game to a win, not a cover, but when you look at it, like teams have been able to go to Cleveland, and it hasn't quite been the upset territory that it was last year or earlier this year. And I think Pittsburgh, the way that they stopped the run against Detroit gives me confidence, especially without Judkins. The offensive line of Cleveland being beat up against this defensive front of the Steelers, where they might be able to force Shedeur to hold the ball, sack him, force a forced fumble, get a short field, get an interception, force a mistake. And that could really be the difference in covering the spread or winning this game. Without DK Metcalf, it does allow Cleveland to maybe be a little bit more generous in their ability to pack the box and stop the run. But that's the only thing I'm scared of. It's not like DK is really a massive part of the offense. I think Kenny Gainwell, Jalen Warren, Darnell Washington, these guys are plenty able. Jonnu can create some explosives. Calvin Austin can fly. I think they have enough at the receiving core level. Adam Thielen coming in, Marquise Valdez-Scantling coming in. The way that the Steelers are able to pass rush against these tackles, the way that they're able to stop the run, the way that Mike Tomlin is able to manage a game and understand how to play a mucky, not a pretty football game in the AFC North. I think all those things, I like the Steelers. I know we're laying a field goal here, but this spread has gone too far in my opinion. It made more sense when it was 4 or 4.5. At 3, I just don't think that the quarterback on the Brown side is good enough, that he makes enough plays beyond screen passes. He's definitely going to make a mistake or two. He's definitely going to take a bad sack or two. Stefanski has shown that he'll be too risky in these games and go for it when he shouldn't, when he should probably punt. Cleveland at this rate is only really playing for the fact that Myles Garrett's trying to get this record. Other than that, they're not playing for anything of substance. The Steelers are looking to close out the AFC North. They have massive, massive, massive motivation, and I think that shines through here. I think Rodgers manages them to a victory and a cover. I think they'll win by about a touchdown, like 20-13. So give me the Steelers as our next best bet. Our fourth pick is going to be the Buffalo Bills -1, -1.5. Either way you look at it, I like Buffalo under 2 at home against Philly. Now, this spread has been moving towards Philadelphia and, a little bit lower. And that's good because I've liked the Bills all along. Now, a lot of that has to do with the availability of certain players for Philadelphia. It does appear that Jalen Carter and Lane Johnson, two of the Eagles' best players, maybe their best players on either side of the ball, are going to be active in this game. It at least appears that way. A.J. Brown has not been practicing, but I'm not too concerned. Lane Johnson hasn't been practicing. Landon Dickerson hasn't been practicing. But, okay, maybe it's just Jalen Carter who will play, but I think that they're going to try and get Lane Johnson to go. But regardless, I look at this as Philly doesn't really need to win this game. Philly's already clinched their division. Philly can't really move up in the standings. They're probably going to be the 3 seed, right? So I look at this as one where they can't really move down because Tampa or Carolina is too far below them. They're probably not going to move up because the Bears beat them and the NFC West is far above them. It's unlikely that they're the 2 seed. So there's not a ton of motivation to go out there and destroy the Bills or play their best game ever rather than rest some players and get ready for the playoffs and maybe work out some of their deficiencies. And then for Buffalo, I think there is a lot of motivation here where there is still a slight chance that they win their division. There is a pretty big incentive to get the 5 seed in the AFC because you'd way rather go to Pittsburgh where you've already played and won pretty convincingly rather than go to Jacksonville, a team that appears to be a pretty tough team right now. Rather go there than, go to Pittsburgh rather than Denver or go to New England where you split the season series. So I think for Buffalo, there's huge incentive to win this game because Pittsburgh's the easiest division winner by a mile out of all these teams, right? So there is a lot of motivation. Second, I think that there could be some snow flurries, some light snow and or some light rain. Those things both, I think, help the Bills. Josh Allen is very good in that type of weather. We saw that against New England. He's also just very good at running, very good at creating, very good at design runs. The Bills are the much better running team in this game. I know that Saquon and Jalen Hurts, they're known for that ability and the tush push and all that. But if anything, the Bills have been better in short yardage lately. The Bills are better in the red zone lately. The Bills have a quarterback that's nearly unstoppable. He can still throw the ball in this weather, and he can run the ball in this weather. James Cook is incredible in this weather. And then also on top of that, Saquon struggled to be consistent running the ball. Jalen Hurts isn't quite, I would say, as dangerous as Allen as a runner, but he's also much worse, the bigger deal, much worse throwing the ball. It becomes a team where if there is rain or there is snow, Allen can grip the football, he can still handle it, he can control it, while Hurts is more hesitant. Hurts can't quite control it. He may fumble the ball a couple times if he gets hit. He has smaller hands. He's not quite good in that weather. We saw that against the Rams last year. And the only reason they won that game is because Saquon went for 300 yards. I don't think that's going to happen based on how the Eagles are playing in the run game this year. And you look at the Bills, and they're at home. They've only lost 1 game at home in 2 years. That was to the Patriots on primetime. And the Eagles have not played consistent football. They beat up on some bad teams lately and looked better against bad teams like Washington, the worst defense I've seen in the NFL lately. The Raiders, who are just a terrible team. And then also they looked poor against better teams. Like they lost to Dallas, they lost to the Bears, they lost to the Chargers, and the Bills are probably better than all of those teams, the Bears, the Chargers, and the Cowboys. So this is the toughest opponent the Eagles have played in quite a long time. I would make an argument for that. Maybe the entire season. You could make an argument for that, at least since the Rams, maybe. But the Eagles are just disorganized on offense. They don't have a very calculated passing game. Sean McDermott and the Bills' passing defense is the strength of their defense. At home, they do typically get a better pass rush. They do have very good zone coverages, which zone coverage is much more useful against Jalen Hurts because against man, that's more dictated by A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith, while the zones can kind of take away all the money routes and the concepts that the Eagles like to run, which there's a limited sum of those. And Hurts has a kind of a problem sometimes of sorting through it and really reading it, kind of like he did against the Chargers where he threw 4 interceptions. I wouldn't be surprised if this was a game where both teams kind of struggled to throw the ball, given the pass rush of Philly against Buffalo, meanwhile Quinyon Mitchell, Cooper DeJean, but the Bills were running the ball better. Allen made more creative plays, and the Bills' pass defense dominated the Eagles' pass offense, and the Eagles just weren't quite able to keep up while running the football. And if the Bills do get the lead, that's where I'm really worried about the Eagles. While if the Bills fall behind at home, I feel like they can come back against anybody. Down 10, down 14, down 7. Doesn't really matter as long as it's not like 21. I'd feel fairly confident the Bills could still win. While if the Eagles fall down, I don't really have that same confidence, especially with the lack of motivation for them to win the game. So there's a variety of reasons I like the Bills. I think they're the better team. I think they have the better quarterback. I think they have some advantages. And we have seen the Eagles get ran on. And I think if the Bills are able to run the ball against these light boxes of Vic Fangio, that will go a long way to winning. So that's my 4th bet. And my 5th and final selection and recommendation. This is only for the D-Gens, but I like the Raiders plus 1.5. I know it's crazy, but the Raiders to me are better than the Giants right now. They're at home. They're getting 1.5. They are without Brock Bowers, but the key ingredient here to me is running the football. And the Raiders and Ashton Jeanty looked pretty good last week. Jeanty looked explosive. They were able to run the ball in the Texans fairly well. He made a big play in the passing game. I think you can do that against the Giants linebackers as well. And I think that the Giants, they're going to want to run the ball. I mean, their quarterback last week threw for 33 yards. Like, the Raiders. We got our eggnog, our Christmas eggnog in here in the cup. And I think that this eggnog is going to fuel them to a win. But honestly, man, I just really believe that the Raiders are playing better, playing with more motivation. Pete Carroll has this team playing hard. I think that the Raiders are a good run defense, and I think that will be the difference. I think the Raiders will be able to control the game, control the clock, and run the ball on the Giants, who are the worst run defense in the league. Meanwhile, the Giants right now, their only source of offense is their ability to run the ball, and I don't think they're going to be able to run the ball that successfully against the Raiders, right? The Raiders are 4th in yards per attempt allowed against the run. It's the thing that they do best on their football team. So it's really a fundamental play. The Raiders also played maybe their best effort, best game of the season, other than the first week of the year against the Patriots. I thought they played pretty well and pretty hard last week on the road at the Texans, a tough place to play. This week, they're back at home. They don't have Brock Bowers, but they've got Ashton Jeanty to lean on here. I think they're going to go with multi-tight end formations, really run the ball, play with power. Geno off of that, play action. There is an argument Geno is still a better quarterback than Jackson Dart, without a doubt. I don't mind the Raider defensive line to get some pressure led by Max Crosby. And the Giants don't really have receivers that can separate or get open or scare me, even against an undermanned Raiders secondary. So for a variety of reasons, the Giants kind of falling apart, not playing with much motivation, not playing with much heart. The Raiders are at home. The Raiders want to put on a show for their fan base in Vegas, and I just think they win the run game matchup, which is why I would take them as my 5th and final pick, getting 1.5. There it is, guys. My best bets versus the spread for week number 17. Merry Christmas, enjoy the weekend, and Happy New Year. It's Mitch. Win some money. Let's start 2026 off right. Peace.